You're about to watch a podcast with myself and Jim Liu. He's known for several different things. Front cover of Total Prestige magazine. He's known for his expertise, his business, his influence, and he is the CEO of SEO Vendor. Now, SEO Vendor won the Vega Digital Awards this year of 2024, and SEO Vendor is known for their core AI, and Jim speaks a lot about it in this podcast. He shows you how it helps the internal team and how many free tools there are out there that could help you. Not only do we dive into SEO GPT and core AI tools that you can leverage and use, but we also jump into white label services and what makes SEO vendors' white label services different from everybody else's. And guys, we had some technical difficulties. The podcast was over an hour long and my camera overheated, but the audio is great. I did some visuals for you guys, and there's some super valuable insight. Enjoy. Yeah, could you share your journey that led you to become the CEO of SEO Vendor?
That's actually a really long story. I don't know if we have all day for that. I mean, this is a 20-year-old company, and so. Certainly, we've been around for quite a long time. I've been with the company for at least more than a dozen years or so. Maybe, probably much more than that now. Sorry, I lost count. And back in the day, I mean, when this company first started, we were not even talking about Google. We were talking about Alta Vista search engines. We were talking about Excite search engines, right? Like those were the hot, most popular search engines of the day that people were actually still doing SEO on. And, people may forget now, except for the few that were still with us from back then. But for the most part, search engines started long before Google. But when Google came on the scene, they just took over, essentially. It was almost like an overnight thing. And, since then, it's just always been Google and SEO Vendor. We've been through a lot as well. We've, the name of our company has changed. We originally, when we first started, it was just called the SEO company. And that was when there wasn't really that many SEO companies. It was just the SEO company until the name was later changed to SEO Vendor because there were too many SEO companies.
Of course.
And, so far it's still stayed as SEO Vendor. But who knows? Will that change in the future? Hard to say.
Yeah, I think I'm as old as the internet and you were there before the time. So it must have been so interesting to see this transition, all of these changes happen. It's mind-blowing, and something that attracts me to SEO Vendor and you is the core AI. How many years did you spend on creating this, core AI, and what got you to the realization that you want to create your own patent pending technology?
Well, the reason why it's called core AI is because there's a set of technology that existed before that called the core. And the core is something that the company still uses today. It's just gotten a whole lot bigger. So the core was essentially the start at the very, very beginning of our, you could say, our first set of entry into a software or a technical way of trying to solve problems in SEO, specifically analytical problems, where it required a lot of computation, a lot of thinking, doing homework, spending a lot of time with data in order to get to certain conclusions, like whether we should do A or whether we should do B. And that we started organizing very early on in the core. And so the core alone, I think, is now about 12, maybe 13 years old. So the core is actually it's been there for quite a long time. And of course, many of its subsystems have gone through a lot of generational changes. So like right now, we're on the 12th generation of the core.
Wow.
And core AI was introduced, I think, around, I would say, maybe about the 4th or 5th generation. So core AI was when we first introduced neural networks, the actual learning method behind a lot of the artificial intelligence, including a lot of the large language models today, it's all based on a neural network subsystem. And that subsystem is something that we still use and we continue to improve upon to build our own learning model specifically for SEO. And so the analytics, the data that people see today, a lot of that they are seeing it through a combination of core and core AI.
And I can imagine all these years of constantly bettering it and changing it to what it's become now. I mean, I've worked on it and it's pretty amazing, but what would you say, and also to tell our viewers, what makes it stand out from other AI SEO tools in the market?
There's a lot of SEO. There's a lot of SEO tools. Don't get me wrong. There's already a lot of great, awesome tools that we as a company we use as well. SEMrush, Ahrefs, those are all great tools. Even MOZ to some degree, and there's a whole lot more out there that our internal team, our SEO analysts, our managers, they use on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
However, the reason why we ended up developing our own is because there are some things we needed to do that just simply doesn't exist out there. That's the problem. That problem still exists today. So those tools still don't exist. And what we're doing is we're starting to make public a lot of the tools that we've been developing and across the different generations of core and core AI, to bring those to the sort of the front end of the platform, so that people can come to our website and they can sign up on our platform and use it for themselves. So a lot of those tools that are starting to become available, some of it is based on AI, and some of it is based on, like, for example, our own core AI, and some of it is based on AI that exists out there. So you have, say, for example, some of the newest and the latest, greatest AI technologies from OpenAI. Those set of technologies are great for content creation, for instance, specifically SEO optimized content creation.
Yeah.
Now the thing is OpenAI, you could certainly use their ChatGPT to perform a number of SEO tasks. However, the problem like we found is that it's when you try to get really nitty-gritty into some of the things that you may want to do, or if you have mass operations that you want to cover, the consistency, it's not easy to keep that consistency for one. And the second is that there are multiple steps that perhaps somebody would have to go through many iterations in order to get to what they actually want. So what we've done is we created a set of technologies called SEO GPT, just based on OpenAI's GPT technology, that's designed specifically with our 20 years of experience in how to do SEO. And essentially, we've downloaded our experience, our methodology into these tools. The only difference is that it's an AI that's ultimately performing the content creation on that. But the tools are designed so that they go through a massive amount of operations in order to make it as easy as possible for the user to be able to make searches and optimize content, whether they know SEO or not. And that was the whole point. The other set of technologies that have to do with AI, like our own patent, I guess it's still considered patent pending as of now, but I think soon it'll be patented, is our core AI technology, and that set of technology is something that even ChatGPT, it's not easy for that kind of AI to replicate, because it's so specific. It's so specialized in SEO that it's made specifically for SEO analysis. And so that's what it does really, really well. And, we've used it consistently now for the past, I think, 7, 8, years now, and it's brought tremendous results to all of our clients, and we've been able to maintain that performance level consistently ever since. So it is a great, awesome piece of ware that we're starting to introduce more and more tech from Core AI into different tools on our platform so that people can come use it and experience it for themselves.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I've used it, and it's so easy to navigate. And the biggest thing that I can say that I realized was how specific it is. I mean, I love ChatGPT. I still use it every day, but it's almost like it's repetitive. And like you said, it's really good for creating content. But when I want to put a URL or a brand name and I want those specifics, it doesn't achieve the goals that, SEO GPT does.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. The reason for that is because ChatGPT is basically, it's an AI, it's machine language driven, and essentially it needs to work for the masses, basically. It needs to be able to solve not only SEO problems, but tomorrow it could be a car mechanics issue, or the next day it could be questions about planets, stars, math, whichever. It could be just about anything. So, it has to be like the Swiss Army knife of it all. But what we're able to do, like say, for example, with SEO GPT-2, and the reason why we developed that is because you're able to hone it down to be able to allow it to be an expert in just one area. And that takes a lot of finessing. That's not something you can just write into a prompt and just get a response. Even if you have the world's greatest prompts, you can't do this. You have to be able to have something that we created, which is now also patent pending, called our DTR. So DTR stands for, I think, dynamic
topic relations.
Topic relations. Yeah. Dynamic topic relations. Sorry, it's been a while. But essentially what DTR, which, I think it's now been like several years now, even with that. DTR is super helpful because essentially it's the glue that makes everything cohesive, come together. So the things you mentioned, like, what are you going to do about the brand? What are you going to do about the topic and how it relates to the keyword? What if you have multiple keywords? How do you have them mesh together? The best tools that are available outside of SEO GPT-2 out there, what they do is they simply just look and see if they have the keyword in your content or not. And we know, driven by Core AI data, that's the last thing you ever want to do with SEO is to just kind of keyword stuff until some metric is happy. That's really bad because ultimately Google has never said they would ever look for anything like that. As a matter of fact, they've also come out and said like keyword stuff and all that's bad. That's the opposite, because that's why they created a long time ago penalty systems for that. And so definitely that's not the direction that you want to go in. So in SEO GPT-2, for example, we don't score according to like, okay, your page, your article has these 16, 17 keywords in it, which are all very similar to one another. Well, how's that even possible? If you're writing, let's say, a 500 or even 1,000-word article, how could you possibly even fit that many in there? Would that really make for a good article? I mean, at the end of the day. So instead, what you want to go for is something called alignment, because alignment is how both a person and a computer system, like say Google, comes over, and they're going to read the content for usefulness. And they have laid out their guidelines like EEAT, but it doesn't have to be that complicated. It's just think about it as a person coming over to your blog or to your website and going to read the content, and it's going to see what are they going to get out of it, what information is useful from that content that they're going to be able to take back as a lesson learned or something useful they can apply to. And that's what alignment is all about. Because yes, you do want to have certain elements, but think of it as today, if you're going to hire a writer, obviously you're going to go to them, you're going to tell them, okay, here's my website. and so you're going to give me your website. And then here's my brand. Here are my keywords that I want you to have in these articles. And then a topic, but maybe help me create the topic. And then do your research. And so if you look at the steps that somebody goes through with a writer, those are the same exact steps that SEO GPT-2 takes you through in the Content Barista in order to create an article. Like, it's literally step by step. It's in that same manner. And as a matter of fact, even the AI units are designed to write in that fashion. Meaning, you can imagine, just like if by the time you get to the writers that are really good, either they already know what they're going to write about, or they're going to do enough research that they're going to write the major chunks of information that's kind of like in draft. And then they're going to conclude it, and then they're going to come back and probably write the introduction. So this is actually the approach that happens inside SEO GPT-2. So the sequence and the order and how the information comes together is the reason why it's able to be so aligned, is because it's like, how do you know what to write unless you already have all the information in place?
Yeah.
So meaning, like, it's already done its research, it's already gotten its references, and it's already read those references. Yes, it actually reads the references. And not only has it read the references, but it's actually highlighted information out of those references, snippets that are perhaps facts or other types of useful information, as it's applicable to your topic and also to the subtopic as well. So it looks at everything, just like a real person would. And that's something that's really out of frame for, like, say, a ChatGPT type system to do. It's not that they don't have the technology. The technology is obviously there because, like I said, we're utilizing the same type of underlying technology, just that they have a much broader, more general purpose that's got to serve everybody. And so we're able to take that and be a little bit more specialized along with our DTR technology.
Yeah, I have a better understanding now because I've done articles on both platforms, and ChatGPT is no match when it comes to articles. And what blows my mind is that you can actually choose different engines. How exactly does that work? Because when I'm writing on, I think the engine is Write Vector 3, and I put it through AI detection, there's like zero AI detection. How does that actually work?
Yeah, so there's actually different engines that somebody can go through and they can choose. But that's also separate from what you were also mentioning about vectors. So it's kind of like this. Imagine vectors are kind of control the process, and certain methods or processes that somebody has to go through, like, say, a writer, in order to get to the destination. So, for example, if a writer is going to write, and if you tell a writer and you tell them, I'm going to write, I want you to write a on-page blog article, they're not going to write it using the same exact method as if you told them, write or create the content for a landing page for me. Assuming they know how to create a landing page.
Yeah.
But the content, even though it's the same writer, they're going to take a different approach. That's a vector. Okay, that's the approach. So that's a vector, and we have different vectors that have to be locked in. Like, for example, if you're writing a press release, that's obviously using a different vector than if you're writing content for your web page versus, say, content for an article. That's a vector. But even with that, you can, among the different vectors, you can pretty much choose any engine that you want to use. And different engines, the best way to look at different engines is you can imagine them being almost like slightly different people. Okay, even though largely speaking, they might be more or less the same or similar. But by switching to a different engine, and we have definitions on all the different engines, and we've done a lot of testing, a ton of testing, so we know these engines very well. We know what kind of output they can create. But with different engines, they are also affected by, like, let's say, releases from OpenAI. So, for example, some of the later engines might have newer data, newer information. That could be helpful in some degree. OpenAI has also said that some of their engines are smarter than other ones, so that could have an impact. However, we allow somebody to make that choice on their own because essentially if you stick with the same engine, it allows that consistency. And also, if you switch to a new engine, like immediately right away, that could have a huge impact on how the writing turns out. So that's why we always by default we never set the default engine to the latest and the greatest, even though that option is available. Yeah. Simply because we want that consistency and we want enough data test points to show up until we're really happy with that new engine before deciding that, okay, you know what, that's going to be now the new default.
I always see SEO Vendor and you releasing new AI features. I mean, there's constantly improvements, there's constantly developments and enhancements happening. Is there something that's currently happening that you can let the audience and me know?
Well, there's something happening all the time. I mean, this year alone, I think we've pretty much had releases every month, if not every week, of something new, some kind of enhancements here or there. Some are big, some are small. We've released new tools. I think one of our most recent tools that we just released is called the Better Keywords AI. And it's sort of the next level to what was previously the SEO GPT keywords option. And but this new tool is just going to blow not only that away, but it's going to blow away every single keyword research tool out there. I mean, it just doesn't compare. It's basically what we've taken as our years upon years of experience, knowing how clients want to see keywords, how they think about keywords. And we've created a product that's specifically demand-driven. So meaning most people, what they do is they tend to go and use a tool that is based on paid ads. So what I mean by that is, for example, you could maybe use the Google keyword suggestion tool. You could perhaps use some other suggestion tools. Well, let's start with the Google one. The Google keyword research tool is actually designed for AdWords. It's not designed for SEO. And while it is designed certainly with business in mind, it's actually been watered down over the years. And I think there's multiple reasons for that, but I think overall, maybe one of the reasons what they were trying to do is they're trying to make it easier for people to use it.
Yeah.
However, that also means that the data is also a little bit murkier as well, and maybe it's best not to talk about why that is, but that's Google's decision. Yeah. And essentially, like for example, volume data. You might have a range of volume now. You won't, they might not give you just the exact volume for a monthly volume. You might, in some cases, run into keywords that are blacked out or blocked off, and you will never see those, unless you just manually come up with them. Mm. Okay? And you'll never know because, keyword choices, there's just so many. How would you ever know?
Yeah.
So you might have to supplement that with, say, a third-party keyword tool anyways. But the problem with the third-party keyword tool is a lot of it is what we call variation-driven. So variation-driven just means that it's essentially just, very, very algorithmic.
Giving you
it's essentially just taking words, maybe switching out different variations, creating different permutations.
Yeah.
And what happens is that, and this happens with every tool. Essentially, what you'll find is that maybe the first 100, maybe even 200 results look good, and then even if the tool returns like 1,000 results, you always notice why is it that once you go beyond 200, the results start getting junkier and junkier, the keywords start becoming less and less relevant, and some of them even start becoming bizarre, you know. And so you kind of have to then, like essentially it's not useful at that point.
Definitely.
And what ends up happening is that someone is trying to cipher through and sort through and filter down their keywords, and they're going through like junk lists, essentially, like 1,000 keywords at a time. And they're trying to find gold nuggets inside this whole heap of keywords that most of it may not even matter to them. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if they were all gold nuggets, then someone would just be like, okay, sure, fine. Here, just take my whole list. SEO for that. But that's really not the case.
Yeah,
and what's going through a person's mind is that they're trying to assess what's the particular intent of that keyword. Does this keyword actually matter to my business or not? Is this keyword actually going to be profitable? Is it worth investing in? Is this keyword appropriate for my product or my service? Does this keyword match my location? Does this keyword have maybe other variations that the system is not telling me? And I have to then go and pull more research off of that. Mm-hmm. So Better Keywords AI solves all those problems because essentially you can just tell it all those things in one go.
Yeah.
And you can then dig in at infinite levels. So it's almost like a 3D kind of keyword research tool, and all of it happens very quickly.
And I know that, obviously SEO Vendor has a legacy of over 20 years. I want to ask, what were some of the early challenges SEO Vendor faced, and how did these experiences shape your current approach to business?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for one, I want to say that, we started out just like any agency would have, essentially. Even though I would say that, as far as this company history is concerned, it was acquired by our parent company, but that was like, I think 14, 15 years ago. And at the time, we had 0 clients. So essentially, we were just buying more of a brand. It's more of a brand acquisition. And at the time, it was considered even more so as a side project. Like it was something that we were going to kind of bring in marketing knowledge, marketing expertise for actually this other e-commerce platform that we were that we had at the time. So it wasn't even the main thing when we first kind of came in trying to manage this company. But I think just like any agency, when you start from zero, you have all the challenges of trying to acquire your first clients. And I think that at the very beginning was probably one of our biggest challenges, was just trying to acquire clients and essentially keep them happy, get SEO performance to be what they expect it to be. But at the time, I mean, SEO was also a little bit more of a wild, wild west in a way.
Okay.
So, sometimes the line's not drawn really clearly, like what's white hat, what's black hat,
Okay.
What's gray hat, So it was like, okay, and at the time, I think also Google's policies and all that were still being drawn up.
Yeah.
I mean, over the years, then later they came out with all kinds of algorithm updates, but you have to imagine there was a period in which nobody talked about Google algorithm updates at the time.
I can't imagine that. Yeah, that's so crazy. And now SEO Vendor has all of these services. I mean, there's a whole massive list, and you also have, the white label SEO, and then you have their clients that you're building on. So did it just, I don't know, kind of skyrocket, or were you like, let's see where this business is taking us, and you just head into that direction?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was challenging. I think, sometimes people talk about, well, just focus on one niche and just do that.
Yeah.
It's really easier said than done. Because I think any entrepreneur, anybody that wants to be a business owner and is coming in is trying to figure things out, well, that's exactly it. How do you know what is it that you're supposed to do or what you're supposed to focus on if you're still trying to figure it out? So you have kind of a chicken and egg problem, right? So It's kind of like, you kind of know that you're supposed to be in one area, but you're still thinking, well, how's that possible? I'm still getting business here and that, or there's still this and that, and we are actually, this is what's growing, not that. So it seems like that is ultimately one of the biggest challenges. Is you have to then realize and come to a decision point. What exactly are you going to focus on?
Yeah.
And for us as a company, that actually took way longer than probably the average business would in trying to determine that. Just because we are in an industry where things are changing all the time. I mean, in the SEO landscape, in the marketing landscape, whatever it is that where we were 6 months ago, I mean, that's all old history now.
Yeah.
So we're always moving ahead, but at the same time, there's also all these new technologies that's coming out. At the same time, it's also influenced by changes to Google's algorithms, the client base itself, what people are asking for, what they're needing of the moment. That's also changing as well. I mean, just think about it in terms of economic demand. I remember actually there was a period during COVID where what they call those like personal protection equipment.
Oh, yes,
PPE,
yes.
I think was what they called it. And believe it or not, at the time, there was a demand for that. There was a demand to set up e-commerce stores for PPE products. There was a demand to market that out. And that's what it was during COVID. But then once COVID passed, that was gone.
Gone.
Yeah. So there are trends in the economy that is also affecting agency, the whole agency space as well, just simply because largely speaking, it is driven by the demand and what people are asking for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, AI has been around for a very long time, but so many agencies and business owners that I personally know never really used AI. And it felt like during the COVID time, that was like when AI really blew up. And a lot of agencies, I would say only 3 or 4 years ago, really started introducing AI into their agencies. But SEO Vendor, I mean, AI was such a big thing from the start. Is it because you have and had that love and passion for AI?
Well, I think coming from an engineering background certainly helped to come up with a solution from a technical, from a computational standpoint. And what I mean by that was, I mean, if I didn't understand about, which by the way I have no, at least when I went to school, I have no background or prior experience with AI. Okay. However, the whole fundamentals behind AI are actually just grounded in mathematics, which I did take all those math classes, and so somehow it did make trying to understand all the fundamentals behind it like much easier. It was just later it was just more about like going to MIT for some online, just watch their online courses. It's all free, it's not like I did anything formal with that, but that's all it took to really kind of get up to speed about today's AI.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think say if I didn't know that, or say if I don't have the ability to even find somebody to help me with that, then typically what an agency does is raise prices. Okay? So here's why I say that is because at the time, while our client base was starting to grow, the problem that I think every agency faces is that then the amount of time they're spending per project is growing as well. Okay? And when I say growing, it's because, why aren't you spending the same amount of time on every project? Well, why is it growing? Well, it's growing because Google came out with more and more sophisticated algorithms. There are many, many more factors to consider that affect rankings. Ranking factors, at first it was like, well, there's these 10 things you should know. Then it's like, there's these 50. Then it's like, there's this 100. And then it was like, now you have a list of 200 different things that all matter to SEO. And then it's like, okay, now that list has grown. Okay. So that list basically keeps growing. And it was like, okay, so how do you deal with that? So like I said, that's why I said, pricing would have had to have gone up. Pricing would have had to have gone up in order to account for the amount of time that was spent on each project. And that was the only way it would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. But in actuality, look what actually happened with us is that I can tell you, even from those pre-AI days till now, which has been over a decade, for over a decade, we have not raised our prices. And you might ask, well, how is that possible when everything around you has gotten more expensive? Everything around you has, it's getting ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because, partially anyway, is that AI has been able to reduce the amount of time our SEO analysts have to go in and essentially perform the same procedures, but do it all manually.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same precision. It's essentially, we've compared it side by side. We've compared it with 5 years or more of data, so we know. We meticulously, looked at and did A/B comparisons between a person doing the SEO analysis part versus an AI doing the SEO analysis part. And by the way, the AI analysis is not like it just goes through magically. It's all still people managed. And that is something that's also very important to our company's values and also very important to me, is that I don't believe in AI replacing people. I believe in AI enhancing people's abilities. It's almost like giving them a superpower. And then it becomes their choice, their decision on how they want to use that.
Definitely.
And so we look at everybody in our company, our whole team, we have over 55 people. We look at everybody in that way, is that the tools, and every time that's why we are inventing both outside, meaning like for the users, but we're also inventing a lot inside, in-house, for our internal team to empower them with the latest and greatest tools. And it's unimaginable because instead of saying, hey, let's just do away with people, actually, they've gotten so much better at doing what they do because now they can think on a higher level. They don't have to think of all the meticulous, repetitive things that they must go through or focus on some process that ends up just being memorized or whatnot. All of that can be, whatever can be automated, we're going to try and automate. Whatever can be done by an AI can be done by an AI. And then, but with a lot of with human oversight. Yeah. So content gets reviewed. AI analysis is always reviewed and looked at. So there's always a sanity check. And also the system also has its own built-in check. So that essentially that's why you have different systems that are operating in check of each other. So you have like core AI analysis, but then you have like eye in the sky, which is like monitoring system that looks at projects overall across like a month span to look at how performance is doing, how's it actually handling things, alerting us what we need to focus on.
Yeah, because I see these great client testimonials and I know there's a lot of people working on the internal team, but I always wonder, how does SEO Vendor ensure this consistency and quality across all these white label SEO projects? regardless of the agency's size or client base?
Well, for one, I mean, even before we introduced any AI technology, we had experiences in hundreds of different industries. So certainly that was already helpful. So we had a lot of client experiences under our belt in different industries. Some are your common, like well-known industries, whether if it's home services or whether if it is even Fortune 500 companies that we have run into over the years. But however, some are, kind of like, this is kind of like a one-off industry that someone is doing. And as long as it's lawful, as long as it's not adult related, we'll work on those businesses, whichever they are.
How did you guys, or when did you guys decide to introduce the white label SEO services?
So white label was actually originally, it wasn't just one day like we decided and hey, we're going to go do white label. It was essentially, we had clients coming to us that we didn't know at first that they were taking our services, and we were like, hey, how come you have this many projects? And it's because they were white labeling them for their clients. And as it turns out, then we started to get more and more requests for white labeling. So we had to then come up with procedures, come up with systems that have to be able to work in a white label fashion. So essentially, I mean, you can imagine white label as looking at it like as if there's a firewall. So essentially, the client should never know the existence of SEO Vendor. And that has to be true across every point of communication and delivery. So you can imagine, how many things we had to cover just right off in the beginning, including how to write our messages, including how to come up with deliverable content to ensure that they don't have our logo or mention our name in them.
Yeah.
How to give material, even brochures over to our client, and allow them to know whether they mention SEO Vendor in them or not. Because, it could be that, hey, this is about our service, but it's written in a way that perhaps was originally meant for retail, and that content could mention SEO Vendor. So we had to watch out for everything. I mean, it was like social media accounts. It was not just only material and communication, but it was all of it. It was managing the accounts. It was, everything comes down to how do you label the company in a way that we can still make work deliverable, awesome, but at the same time, it can't mention anything about our brand on it.
Yeah, that sounds like a challenge amongst everything else that you are constantly building. And how does SEO Vendor's white label SEO service differ from other providers in terms of technology and support?
Well, I think just about everything. I'm not even sure if there is a white label agency quite like ours. Simply because, these days, we are able to provide so much to an agency, even just right off the bat. You have APS, basically automatic program start. An agency can start a project, get an SEO campaign up and running, tasks ready to go, activities all set, and it's all done through automated control units. So this type of setup allows somebody to essentially tell their client the moment essentially they order the product and they start the campaign, they can have a dashboard handed to their client within minutes.
That's impressive.
So a lot of times that's like in the old agency world that could take days or maybe even weeks sometimes. Like, okay, we're getting your client's dashboard set up, we're getting your client's stuff ready to go, and can they fill this out? Can they fill this out? Is still handed over in a Word document to fill out? No, everything is all done through an online platform. It's a proprietary online platform that SEO Vendor created just for white label. And so it's super white label secure. It even has like a very generic domain name if you choose to use that, or you can use your own. Like, we allow clients to use their own domain names if they want to, and they only show like their logo, their branding on it, and its purpose is to provide and facilitate that whole mechanism for onboarding, communications, deliveries, document approvals, any notifications. It keeps track so somebody can go in, they can also view their core AI dashboard, see what the AI is doing, or what the AI is reporting on. They can actually go in and look at it at an individual keyword by keyword level, if they wanted to.
That is awesome. That is amazing. My next question was, what are the benefits? But yeah, you basically answered it. And let's say
I would say that on the communication part or on the support part,
yeah.
I believe that ultimately that is super important, not only for us, but also when somebody says, okay, you know what, you're going to white label something. And so most people are just thinking about just the delivery. Like, here I paid this, and this is what you're going to deliver. But 90% of the time, it's not just about that. It's about all the in-between communications. It's about, hey, my client has this problem today. Is somebody available to help me with that?
Yeah.
And we've put in a lot of work in that area. We have a communication platform that makes it easy for somebody to keep track of their messages. So there are dedicated account managers that are working with projects, and so they know those projects very well. Okay. And it's not like every time you're going to call up and it's another 800 number and you're talking to somebody new who doesn't know their stuff. No, it's like with us, our account managers, they know your projects intimately. They know situationally where you're at, and so you don't have to like repeat yourself 800 times, where you're at with something. And you can keep track of what's going on each one of these projects, even with an app on your mobile phone. They can keep track of messages. You can write back. Doesn't matter. You could be taking a jog. You can write back. You could be on your email. You don't even need the app. You can just reply to the email. It doesn't matter. We'll get that communication all the same. And so we also work very much on that, what we call response time.
Yeah.
So our team keeps heavy track on response time, and we do everything we can to ensure that messages are not only responded to, but if we can provide a solution right away, then we're not going to wait. We're going to provide a solution and try to get that answer out there as quickly as we can. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, at least I don't think that AI is going to come around anytime soon and just completely replace people.
Yeah.
I think the human element, even with a company like ours that's so heavily invested in AI, we're never going to forget about the human element of things and how important it is to have that interaction that is human-based, people-to-people, one-to-one, to understand who our clientele is, to understand their side of the business. Because a lot of times these are agencies, like you said, for white labeling and whatnot. And so it's not just only about providing that service, but it's about helping them out, helping them grow, helping them answer questions. It's like, hey, if I get into this kind of mess, or if I'm in this kind of situation now, or if I'm wanting to scale and do this, or if I want to try to find leads, it's like, what are some methods? And so it's all this in between stuff that makes an agency possible, viable, makes that relationship possible. Right? Essentially, the way that we look at it is adding our company into that agency is like adding 55 people onto that team, is the way that we look at it. So as a team, you got to work together. You got to understand the values. You got to understand what is it that the agency is trying to achieve, the agency owner. What are they trying to achieve? And be able to know that intimately enough so that we can help them along the way on these projects, And, that is really the details. And like I said, I don't think any AI is ever going to come in and just kind of take over that piece. I think that is going to be true, I'm pretty sure, even 100 years from now.
Yeah. And I guess that's the perfect example of giving your employees the creativity, the important, intricate jobs, and letting all the tedious or bulky work get done. And I'm going to finish off with my I'm going to finish off with my last question, Jim. How do you see the future of white label SEO services evolving?
Well, it depends on what we're talking about is the future, right? Like, I think if we have another conversation even 6 months from now, we're probably going to be looking back at this video and be like, what were we, look at where we were back then. We were so backwards, we're already at XYZ, So I think that's just the kind of company we are. So if we talk about even longer future, like say, I don't know, 5 years from now, oh God, I don't know, that's so far off that it's really difficult to even imagine what kind of future that could bring in a space that's moving so fast.
Yeah.
Or where AI can take us. But I do see that I think as long as we continue to look at it with an empowering point of view, meaning we're here to empower people and not take away people's jobs, I think we're going to be headed for a really awesome future.
I love that, and it's really impressive to see you and the whole team and SEO Vendor constantly staying ahead in this marketing space. Thank you so much for making the time and joining me on this podcast, and good luck with everything happening inside of the company.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be having our discussions, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, thank you so much.
All right, thanks for having me here.